You know, like if hip hop doesn't put hip hop on that stage when hip hop is in that limelight, who is going to do it?
This is true. Let's talk Mick Jenkins, man. Mick Jenkins had a very interesting statement I actually agree with, but
he just dropped the album last week too.
Very talented, by the way. Dude is dope.
I'm a fan.
Yeah. Shout out to my man Pete Sake. He told me about he's actually put me on to Mick Jenkins, him and Lone. Dude is nice.
He was the original first headliner for Treese.
Sure was,
wasn't he?
Yep.
Good call.
First year.
So he had a conversation with the Fader, and it was speaking about underground hip hop being cut out from conversations in this hip hop's 50th anniversary. I'm gonna read a part of his interview, and then we can kind of jump into it. It says, we're celebrating 50 years of hip hop, and a lot of artists like myself who've been in this joint for 10, 15 years, underground the whole time, don't get to be a part of the celebration. But artists who have been here for 6 months get on to be on stage and be on award shows. He said, we're celebrating 50 years of hip hop, not 50 years of rap, not 50 years of top 40, 50 years of hip hop. How is underground excluded from that? It's half of it. I think he has a fair point.
The thing about it is too, though, he mentions those artists that people have only heard about for 6 months.
Yep.
They still haven't heard about Mick Jenkins. He's been out for 10, 15 years.
Tough.
And being a part of that underground crowd, it kind of, it's like a gift and a curse because it hinders you in a sense that you're not getting those mainstream ears on you versus the people that's making music for the radio do. So it's kind of it's bittersweet, but he's definitely has a point because somebody that's only been in the game for 6 months and really may have started rapping a year or two ago.
Right.
I would feel a certain type of way too.
And we're old enough to have favorites on the underground, as we've, you always listen to the top 40 and listen to whatever's.
No, I don't.
Well, I'm talking about, I used to listen to the radio. I haven't in years, but I used to listen to the radio.
I haven't since 1996.
Dang. I believe you actually.
That's actually true.
I think I stopped around 2000-ish, but either way.
I still listen to the radio because I like to see what they're doing wrong, essentially.
But the underground is a huge part of, my love for hip hop. Like, it's never been just about one, the top whatever, or the Billboard. Like, there's so much heat that I've heard on the underground. So I think he's 100% right. And he's one of the people that stand out to me. Even just from Chicago. I know so many people on the underground that have had long careers, successful careers on the underground. But yeah, I like it. What do you think, Lon, in terms of what he said?
I mean, it's one of those things where you can look at this multiple ways. I would definitely say that I agree with him but I would also say that this has always been the case. Mm-hmm. And, that's part of the thing about being underground. Not that he wants to necessarily be underground. He just, I don't think that it's a thing as an artist where you just want to be underground. A lot of heads will say yeah, you make underground music. No, you're underground because you stick to the stuff that you do and you don't compromise your principles and what you want to do. If that catches on and becomes popular, then it catches on and becomes popular. Then you're not underground. But I don't think anybody if you as an artist go out and you try to be underground, it's the same as trying to be cool.
That's kind of corny.
That's corny.
You know what I mean? So
that's corny.
It's I don't look at it in that fashion. So I think what Mick is essentially saying is it would be nice to for some of these bigger shows, I guess is what he's kind of alluding to have looked maybe a little bit deeper than what they have. But at the same time, it's it's not like these particular events are the end all be all. So there could be other events that could be thrown that maybe highlight that. You know what I mean? But I get his sentiment and I can agree with it.
What do you think about the piece where he talks about being here for 6 months or so and they get a chance to be, a part of, said celebration?
Who's he talking about?
I don't think any names were dropped.
The only person I can think of is when they did the thing on the Grammys, and you look up and Glorilla.
Oh, okay.
Is on there with all these legends. Now they were trying to include everybody from every era.
Right. Uzi Vert got up there and did his little shimmy.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was, and it's weird. I saw that Questlove talked about, putting that together, and last minute, something like a couple hours just dropped out.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that part.
So yeah, I didn't know that part either. In fact, that was that interview on the Breakfast Club with him and LL, which was in Black Thought, which is really dope. I see where he's coming from to a certain extent, but also, I'm old enough to remember when basically every rap record was underground. There was no such thing as mainstream because there was no video outlet. There was no such thing as a hip hop radio station in every city. And people forget there are still places in this country that still don't have hip hop radio stations.
Yeah.
You know, they might have tried it and it just didn't work, or they just said, okay, we're not going to do this anymore. So you have to understand that, like, that I always think the line of demarcation of when all of a sudden we said, okay, what's the underground and what's mainstream is the day Stakes is High and It Was Written came out. That day in 96 is where there was a real split, you know, because before then, like, everybody was kind of in this together. Now, you had your exceptions where you might have had a Hammer or that was just, you know, out of here.
The Hammer was out of
Snoop.
Even with Snoop, I wouldn't even say, because once again, we loved it. And if you were into hip hop, it seemed like he was everywhere. But, you know, I remember the radio station in St. Louis was like, you know, they try to take a hard line stance and be like, we're not going to play anything off of any Snoop Doggy Dogg records because of the, you know, the violence associated with, you know, whatever, you know, once again, people who are culturally have cultural blind spots. It's not just, you know, white people we always think of. It's a lot of these black program directors as well who were in on this foolishness. But who, you know, because I'm thinking, you know, well, I see De La Soul on all these things. You know, I mean, to some people, De La Soul or you know, or Alex, who's been a part of a few of these celebrations. Now, if you're mad that Jedi Mind Tricks isn't there, or you know, Necro.
I think there are there's levels like to the underground, though. There's levels to the underground, though.
There are people that probably, if you asked them, they wouldn't get involved.
Even with De La, I don't necessarily see them that way. I could see how someone could who's not, I guess, that versed in hip hop or hasn't followed it. But I think there's so many levels that you can go deeper and like some names. You can really pull out some names that are underground artists that, you know, may not have been, you know, mentioned.
Yeah, more
the
like
celebration.
so like him, like in Odyssey,
right?
Like even when you talk about the Hieroglyphics, I would still consider them an underground rap group who's been around for a long time.
Like Little Brother.
Yeah,
Little Brother. There's a good one.
Yeah.
Sky Zoo.
Exactly. I could see where you're like, okay, why aren't these people included? But it's just like they haven't made music even for the mainstream hip hop crowd.
Right.
You know, we all love it, but we eat and sleep this
At
stuff.
the end of the day,
it's different. There's a lot of us, but not as many as the people who are excited when they see LL, De La Soul, Public Enemy, and Ice-T stand up there on a stage, or even when, you know, Nas brings Lauryn Hill out. You know, it's not like we can really complain about any of those people who are getting that shine.
No, I'm not complaining.
Nah, you actually have a few different types of hip hop fans, though.
True.
So you have people that only pay attention to the mainstream hip hop. If you were to ask them who Jay Dilla was, they wouldn't be able to tell you.
Right.
But they can tell you everything about whoever's been the most popular artist for the past 20 years. You know what I'm saying?
True.
And then you have people like us that are kind of well versed across the board. I know a little bit of this, I know a little bit of that. You know what I'm saying? It's a balance. So all hip hop artists aren't created equal.
Right.
Everybody doesn't listen to the same thing. It's not like somebody gave you a book and was like, here are all the artists you're supposed to listen to be a hip hop fan. It's just there's too many artists to do that. So a lot of people can get grouped in that underground category based on how many years have been on them, I guess.
You know, and it's also we think about what commercial success is, and then we think, you know, of that as being commercial music. Like
even that's
Wu-Tang,
changed, though.
When they were selling all those records, that was not, you know, they had commercial success, but they weren't commercial.
Nah.
You know what I'm saying? I don't think DMX ever really was a commercial. I mean,
he dabbled. He had some records that dabbled into
the joints with the little R&B hooks or whatever.
He had a couple joints now.
But, you know,
then he had a song with what's the rock and roll dude?
Marilyn Manson.
Yeah, but at that time, hip hop had converted into pop, being pop culture and being the main front runner. So it didn't matter if, you know, that was right on the cusp when Wu-Tang became popular. It was like right around that time.
Yeah, Wu-Tang was on tour with Atari Teenage Riot.
Rage Against the Machine.
Rage Against the Machine. So
I mean, yeah.
Good call.
I mean, but you're right. It's not Katy Perry, you know. And
it's not where they're thinking, you know, okay, we're going to get this and we're going to get cereal commercials and we're going to go ahead and put them here. Like Wu-Tang got to commercial success being themselves.
You know what?
Whatever that means to, I mean, for us all Hammer success, I feel like that was him. It was just that it just went way further than even any people who were Hammer fans who loved Let's Get It Started and all that. It went further out than even they thought it was going to go.
Yeah,
that's true. A person that comes to mind for me is on the front. Well, not on the fringe, but a very interesting case is Freddie Gibbs. Freddie Gibbs has been bubbling for a long time. Got the Grammy nod. but would you consider him more mainstream, or is he still looked at as like upper echelon of
He's kind of
underground?
in that gray area right before.
I think that's where he is.
I don't think you're mainstream unless you're getting radio play.
Okay, I see.
You know what I mean? Unless you're
These playlists,
cross over a little bit.
Unless you have like some sort of crossover, you know, and you're appealing to people that aren't hip hop.
Even like
You know what I mean?
Griselda, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They could have easily been featured on any of these tributes or whatnot, but they haven't been.
True.
And I kind of think they're in that gray area too, because a lot of people know them for who they are, but some people know them for being wrestling fans and showing up at WrestleMania and being on the front row and stuff like that, and having just outlandish clothes that cost a lot with wrestling themes to them. You know what I'm saying?
Wearing furry boots and Flatbush and hanging out.
It's
chicken
like
and fries, you know.
It's like Gibbs' Twitter feed. Like that's a part of that goes into everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of people know him for that, plus the records.
Well, that's what music is essentially turned into anymore. I mean, it's always kind of been like this, but it's definitely it's
You have to be a multimedia star.
Talent doesn't matter. It never has mattered, really. I mean, we can have that argument, we can have that conversation, but realistically, when it comes to like the super mainstream, talent has never been the most dominant force.
Like because I'm a nerd like this, and I love looking at people's chart history, and because sometimes it can make a good argument or a bad argument for actually how popular someone is. Like there was a time, like remember how big like New Kids on the Block were?
Yes,
but you gotta understand, like they had a song that was a hit in like 1990 and didn't have another song hit for like 25 years. That their run of actually having a chart history ended with Step by Step until like they all broke up, retired, and then somebody gave them some money to come out of retirement. And that's why, but their popularity was through the roof. They were a commercial success, despite the fact that none of their songs were hits and they put out 2 more albums and nobody cared. But they were still able to sell out these stadiums. Sometimes with hip hop, I would love to see Little Brother on one of these stages, but then again, has Little Brother ever been on a stage that big?
But maybe that's the argument. You know, like if hip hop doesn't put hip hop on that stage when hip hop is in that limelight, who is going to do it?
This is true.
Like I think there's an argument for that. And was Mick talking more so about, was it general, or was he talking about like older hip hop acts that were underground, or was he talking about newer, or did it like?
I want to say from 96 on. Like that, I want to say
because I was thinking that it was from his era. You know
I think he's leaning more towards his, because he mentioned himself. I've been in 10 to 15.
He's thinking like with the Sky Zoos and
that crop of people, blog era.
Like it's like, hey, why did
everybody that's been doing stuff in hip hop since '96 that isn't popular,
right?
And consistently been putting out records.
Somebody could have brought the Cool Kids out. Somebody could have brought.
There's another one.
Tanya Morgan. You know what I'm saying? Like there are people that I would love to see, but it's just like
who are we doing this for?
If you're just that hip hop nerd, I don't know. Sometimes you just wonder what the impact is beyond your bubble.